It is a perfectly clear Sunday morning in Rome. BOAC Flight 781, the world's very first commercial jetliner, lifts off the runway heading for London. It is the absolute pinnacle of human engineering. As the plane climbs through 26,000 feet, the captain keys his microphone to talk to a nearby flight. He says, "Argonaut, this is G-ALYP. Did you get my—" The plane simply ceased to exist. In a fraction of a second, the aircraft suffered a catastrophic disintegration mid-air. All 35 people on board lost their lives. There were no survivors, no witnesses, and absolutely no explanation. When investigators pulled the shredded metal out of the sea, an Australian scientist named Dr. David Warren realized a terrifying truth. If we don't know why perfectly good planes fall out of the sky, we can never stop it from happening again. Aviation desperately needed a mechanical witness that could sit in the absolute center of an apocalypse and survive to tell the story. Today, we are tearing apart the world's most famous piece of survival technology. We're dismantling the armor, decoding the microscopic memory chips, and revealing the forensic physics investigators used to solve the darkest mysteries in the sky. The media called Dr. Warren's invention the black box, because early prototypes literally were black, light-proof containers protecting photographic film. The name stuck permanently. But as crash investigators started hunting for these devices in the real world, a massive flaw emerged. Finding a soot-covered black box in the middle of a blackened crash site was nearly impossible. The industry needed a visual hack. Enter International Orange. This isn't an aesthetic choice, it's optical science. Human eyes have evolved to be incredibly sensitive to specific wavelengths of light. This exact chemical formulation provides maximum visual contrast against the deep blue of the ocean, the dense green of a forest, and the monochrome gray of a burn site. But paint and reflective tape won't save you in the dark. Bolted right to the side is the underwater locator beacon. A mechanical switch doesn't turn this on, it uses the ocean itself. When water bridges the gap between two internal nodes, the circuit closes. Because radio waves die instantly in water, it fires an acoustic pulse at 37.5 kHz. Specialized sonar can detect this ultrasonic frequency from 2 miles away. Once triggered, it fires one ping every single second for up to 90 days. But standing out in the dark means nothing if the hardware is destroyed on impact. That's where the armor comes in. The black box is actually a two-part system housed in the tail section, absorbing the least kinetic energy during a crash. The flight data recorder and the cockpit voice recorder both rely on the same armored core, the crash survivable memory unit. To get certified, this outer titanium shell is placed under a hydraulic press, applying 5,000 pounds of static crushing force for 5 straight minutes. If a collapsed fuselage lands directly on it, it will not buckle. To test puncture resistance, engineers drop a 500-pound steel weight with a hardened spike directly onto the shell from 10 feet in the air. Blunt force is only the first phase. Kerosene jet fuel ignites terrifying firestorms. Beneath the titanium lies the thermal block. The memory boards are encased in dry silica, a synthetic powder acting as one of the best thermal insulators on Earth. During testing, the unit sits in a 2,000-degree Fahrenheit blast furnace for 60 minutes. The outer metal glows white-hot, but the internal circuitry never gets hot enough to melt. Yet, the deadliest enemy of a microchip is the sudden stop. To survive a mountain impact, this box is fired from an air cannon to simulate an impact of 3,400 Gs. The inner memory board is suspended in a shock-absorbing casing, acting as a microscopic crumple zone, dispersing kinetic energy around the chips rather than through them. The armor absorbs the apocalypse. But what exactly is it protecting? The answer lies in the microscopic witnesses inside. Decades ago, recorders used literal spools of magnetic tape, prone to snapping or stretching. Today we use pure, solid-state memory. No moving parts, just highly stable, densely packed chips. A modern flight data recorder logs over 1,000 different parameters multiple times a second. It tracks the exact millimeter position of the pilot's control column, the temperature of the exhaust gas, and even the electrical draw on the cabin lighting. It stores a continuous 25-hour loop, automatically overwriting the oldest data. But if the plane suffers explosive decompression and loses all generator power mid-flight, the box has a failsafe. Using internal capacitors, The system instantly executes an emergency shutdown protocol. It writes the data currently in its temporary RAM directly to permanent flash memory in milliseconds, locking in the critical final moments before the unit goes dark. Telemetry data tells investigators what the plane did, but to figure out why, they have to look at the sound. The cockpit voice recorder captures the last 2 hours of audio from the pilot's headsets, radio communications, and a cockpit area microphone mounted in the ceiling panels. When an airplane goes down, this audio is a chaotic avalanche of roaring wind, master alarms, and frantic voices. To make sense of this, investigators don't just listen, they rely on deep spectral analysis. They feed the audio through an algorithm called the short-time Fourier transform, converting the sound into a visual map called a spectrogram. Time runs along the bottom, pitch is on the side, and brightness represents volume. Acoustic engineers literally look at the sound. Using adaptive digital filters, they scrub out known static, like the steady 400 Hz hum of the aircraft's electrical system. Once stripped away, hidden signatures emerge. Because jet engine fan blades spin at exact RPMs, they emit specific mathematical frequencies. If an engine begins to fail, investigators literally see the visual line of that frequency drop on the spectrogram, down to the exact millisecond. They can identify the acoustic signature of a compressor stall or the microscopic ping of a structural bolt snapping. By syncing this audio timeline perfectly with the telemetry data, they build a flawless reconstruction of the disaster. This forensic process is perfect, but only if you can actually get your hands on the hardware. And historically, the ocean doesn't like to give it back. The indestructible design has a glaring, fatal flaw. You still have to go find it. When Air France Flight 447 crashed, it took 2 years and tens of millions of dollars to recover the recorders from the Atlantic floor. Tell us in the comments which aviation mystery we should decode next. Thanks for watching. Make sure to stick around for our next video, where we reveal why that tiny hole in every airplane window has a dark history. In the meantime, remember to like, share, and subscribe.